Welcome to Dayton Warcry Club. I'm Warren, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Fred and Dave. Today, Dave just finished a Corvus Cabal warband, so we're featuring them with 2 battle reports, along with some lessons learned along the way. Plus, as usual, we have our hobby update, and we might also discuss some upcoming events we're trying to put together. So, hey, how's it going, guys?
Doing good.
Yeah, so far so good. So far so good. Working on lists.
Always working on lists.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been busy with a little bit of work stuff, a little bit of distractions from video games. Probably gonna double back and actually get back and do some painting tonight though. Just finished up a couple other things, so we'll talk about that first though, the hobby update, and then we got 2 battle reports here. So if people want battle reports, well, here's the double header, and then hopefully we can learn some stuff along the way. If you're new to Warcry, especially. So hobby update. So first off, we just so we got Dave's Corvus Cabal, and great looking picture there. Right? So I got to ask. Well, first off, like, where'd you get the terrain? You printed that, right?
That is all 3D printed terrain that I've taken from just general places around the net. Most of it probably from Thingiverse, but yeah, it's just general dungeon terrain, generic. And then there's a blood fountain I found in the back. I thought that was very, chaosy. So
yeah, it all matches the bases. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I'm pretty firm that a 3D printer is the new hobbyist best friend.
Yeah, I want to get one. I want to get a resin printer, I think, but that'll be down the road.
Yeah, and that's a thing as people ask sometimes. Resin is great for models because it's much higher resolution than the deposit printers. But for terrain, I think you actually might want the non-resin, the plastic, just for speed and area. Resin printers tend to be a little more vertical than horizontal as far as printing. So space, as far as printing space.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So down in the lower right, we got my ghouls. So I didn't show these off. I think I was still working on them the last time we met. But so I finished those off. That was actually pretty quick for me. That they're done in 3 sessions. Prime, a little bit of minor detail, wash and base. So there's all my chaff models for Flesh Eater Quartz, and I'm looking at the 2 leaders right now. I could knock those out fairly quickly. I've just been putting that off a little bit.
They paint fairly quickly because they have a lot of big, broad area on them.
Yeah.
And they dry brush really well because all the detail tends to be like raised bumps and stuff, and you can just really pull it all off with dry brushing. I'm really happy with how mine look, and they came together really quick.
And then the other thing, and so this is no miniatures with this yet, but this is a project. This is a potential project. So, and you guys heard me gushing about this already. So my copy of Gore Chosen came in. It doesn't have any minis. It's just a used copy. So I gotta talk about this a little bit. So it's this Games Workshop game that came out in 2016. So it's way far out of print. And the theme is it's 4-player free for all, champions of Khorne in a death pit, last man standing wins. And it actually came with 4 miniatures. It comes with a couple of like the Exalted Champions. And there's rules for like up to 8 different Khorne leader models that you'd recognize, like 2 Slaughter Priests, both of them, the Bloodstoker, the Bloodsecrator, a couple of the Exalted Champions. And so you have all these different options, and they have all like the whips and chains and all that. So they have different attack ranges with the hexes. there's like this rage system where if you get hit, your rage goes up, and so you get more cards in the initiative pile, so you can take more actions the next turn, and then you exhaust them as you make attacks. There's no healing, and like the injuries start to pile up, and then you just randomly die to a decapitation or getting like kicked into a pit. And even in the rule book, there's like a bunch. The rules are super simple, super easy to pick up. It looked like. And there's a bunch of fluff there, and it is gory, man. It is just like, it's like, snuff film type stuff in the lore. It's absolutely ridiculous. I love every bit of it. And so what I might do is, I have a couple of the models that they have rules for already, right? I may get more of the models and be like, all right, we're going to do this. Not super high priority project right now, but this is something that, if the fancy tickles me, I might get a lot more just random Khorne leader models and just build that collection. And there's 8 models, and that's the magic number for Khorne too.
Sweet. Yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah. Never have enough Khorne.
That's right. So, but let's get into business here. So we got battle reports. So we had Ogor Mawtribes. The first one was Ogor Mawtribes. This is Fred playing ogres versus the Corvus Cabal. So right off the bat, so Dave, you had a 1-box list, and you didn't have really a lot of options, but tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, this is a straight out of the box. I have exactly what came in the box and nothing else, and so that's what I went with. They did, when they updated the point totals, it used to be that you could not build the 3 Cabalists with spears, and you had to take a Cabalist with a familiar, or you were like 5 points over. So they did fix that. So now you're not stuck with the Cabalist with familiar. So it is exactly the figures that come in the box, and it is 1,000 points and exactly, and we were off and running.
All right. And then Fred, tell us about your ogres. I had a real bad, the picture didn't come out, so they turned out blurry, unfortunately.
But yeah, they look better than that in person. So ogres. This list was put together to play Hrothgorn. I wanted to try Hrothgorn. I like Hrothgorn. I had it. It was one of like the million Underworld warbands I scooped up. This is actually before they announced that they were going to get rules. I just liked the ogre models that were in there, and it was a good way to get a what's it called, a Frostborough Hunter. So, but I wanted to play with him. He's kind of a unique model. He is a gut lord, except that he shoots rather than fights. Basically, he gets 2 attacks. They're strength 6. They do 4/8, and he's got a 9-inch range on that. So he's not probably the most efficient model that you can use in the game with only 2 attacks, but he does hit really hard when he hits. And of course he has the synergy with Quiv, which seemed really cool to me, and I wanted to see what that would be like. Like, the stock thing you do with ogres is get a bunch of bonus activations out of your Thunder Fists with their double that lets them get another attack if they kill something.
Yep, and we're going to see that.
Yes. And Hrothgorn, which is a really, really good ability, for just it's a bonus action on a double. And the really cool thing about it is it doesn't have a range restriction. So it's a bonus action on a double, which is really valuable. And it gets to go to models that are really, really good at using it. So to play around with that, and the fact that Quiv for a triple can give a bonus action to Hrothgorn, means that potentially this list could generate a bunch of really high impact bonus actions, right? Like it's got a Thunder Fist, it's got Hrothgorn, it's got Quiv. Like with doubles and triples, this you can get a lot of really high octane shooting attacks with this list. I punched in the Maneater because I had the Black Powder Buccaneers set, and I wanted to use Black Powder. He was potentially going to be a Tyrant, but I wanted to get Hrothgorn and a Thunderfist in there. So the only other real model that has a pistol and a melee weapon is the Maneater. I was actually, they're not like super points efficient, although they're not as badly non-points efficient anymore. But I was impressed with the Maneater. Maneater did good work. The shooting attack came up. Still a melee monster. So happy with that. The deployment groups have one real huge monster per group, and then like a couple of real chaffy Noblars. And that was pretty simple. Just the Noblars were there to block for the shooting units, and the shooting units there to kill everything. And away we go.
Yeah, there's a typo in there. It's not 135 Noblars. It's 135 points for 3 Noblars.
Yes.
And so the monkey, you proxied him as a Noblar, and then you had two other regular Noblars, and then Bushwhacka and Quiv. We could we knew who they were.
Yes, Bushwhacka is a Noblar with a slightly weaker attack profile, but a double that's potentially useful. I don't think it's very good, but for 40 points, he can just be a slightly even cheaper chaff model, and suck up activations just as good as a Noblar does. And then every once in a while, you might get some use out of his double.
Yeah, so it's like one of those deals where like sometimes the Underworld Warbands give you like a little bit of additional flexibility with if you're playing with points. Like let's say you had a standard ogre list that came out to 100 to 1,005 points. You could just downgrade a guy or upgrade a guy to Bushwhacka and you're fine. Or like burning extra points with a slightly upgraded model if you're just shy.
Yeah, this list did not have Luggett and Thwack in it, who I do want to play with. They are a slightly more expensive Novelar with a better attack profile. But this was not the list for them. This is all about trying to squeeze some value out of Hrothgorn and see if he's at all defensible.
So you might be asking yourself, okay, we got an Ogres list, looks pretty spiky here, and we got a 1-box Corvus Cabal list that isn't probably not a very even matchup. And we just got to say right now, so Dave, you asked for this. Right?
Yeah. This is only the fourth or fifth game I've played. I'm still learning, so I'm out here to play the game, to learn. I'm not necessarily trying to be real competitive. So I had my army. I said, "Bring it on. Show me what you got." It was a little lopsided. It was a little lopsided, but it's a learning experience, and that's what we're here for right now, for me at least. So,
yep. Fred said, "You're gonna learn."
Oh, I learned.
Yep. Well, let's talk about it. Let's get into it.
So yeah, we played. We're doing. So the victory condition is the hidden artifact. And so that is where you have 3 treasures on the board. You have 3 treasures on the board, and then you're going to roll
one in
off.
The middle.
Yep.
And then one placed by each player.
Yep. And at the end of the first round, you roll off, and one of the treasures disappears, and then the next round another treasure disappears. So it's a treasure mission, but with a twist. There is a little bit more interaction involved in that one.
Yes. And that kind of came up in this, like which treasure to disappear when was a real tactical decision, and it came up. And obviously, the winner of the game is whoever ends with the real treasure. So it decentivizes some of the classic treasure stuff, like running a super fast unit in, grabbing the treasure, and just running away with it for the rest of the game, because your opponent just like, well, That one doesn't exist anymore. So you do have to kind of scrap over the treasures in this deployment here.
Yeah. And so I had a recent game, I'll talk about it during that report, where like who wins the roll off and who gets to pick first on which treasure could have a bearing on the game or like your decisions going forward too, I found out. And we had an even symmetric deployment here, so no funny business there. And we actually had two different twists. Healing Rains, I don't think anyone used, but it's a minor. You can spend a double for a heal. And then we also had Battle Frenzy. I think we might have actually set this one aside and forgot about it. I don't know if we were doing +1 to melee attacks or not on the Battle Frenzy, but I believe that was our second twist.
Yeah, I don't. We may have forgotten this. This game went pretty quick, so there was not a lot that happened that could have happened, which you'll see as we continue to go on.
Yeah.
So here's the setup here. So here we got the 3 treasures laid out. We get 3
Pretty
treasures.
straightforward. We didn't do anything tricky with the treasure deployment. They're just kind of equidistant.
Yep.
And then we got to it.
Yep. And then you got the ogres. We got ogres starting on the board here. We got some Corvus starting on the board here, and we have these other groups on the edges coming in.
Yeah, so I deployed pretty much as far forward as the deployment would let me, with the goal of not wasting any turns getting into position. I wanted to start shooting from turn 1 if possible. That's really something I think you really want to do with these shooty lists, is when the deployment allows it, make sure you're getting that damage out on turn 1, because you do have to start whittling down your opponent's models to get even on activations, and I wanted to do that right away.
So starting with round 1, so Corvus actually right off the bat making plays for a couple of the treasures, including using Swift Climb to get up there. That was this one here, and then also you could see that they had a clear. They were actually closer to the center as well, so they made a claim on the center and on this elevated one here.
Yeah.
And,
I was gonna say I did know that I didn't stand a chance like toe to toe with the ogres. So
right.
I did one thing that the Corvus does have is speed and a lot of movement abilities. So I thought, like, I'm just gonna get right on the treasure and start running, which is not as an effective strategy when there's so many range attacks on the table.
Right, hard to play keep away when he can project power like that. And yeah, not a lot of fatalities here. This is just a little bit more what we see early turns of the games, where it's just jockeying for position. You had one shot, hit a Cabals for 6, wounding him but not killing him. Round 2 here. So so Dave won the roll off, removed the far treasure token, and so the 2 treasures in play are the ones that he's currently possessing. And at this point,
here comes Hrothgorn.
Yep, Hrothgorn comes on. The Spire Talon, Shrike Talon. Yep.
Yeah.
Shrike Talon comes in, and everyone else is coming in as well. So here, we got some shots going on. So Hrothgorn, moves, makes a shot, wounds a guy. The Shrike Talon, he climbs up, gets into position there. And then now we get some real action there. So the Thunder Fist in the center makes a move and attack for 6, and then gets his double. Might makes right. And I forgot to add it to this, and attack, and then also attacks for 6. So we actually managed to knock out 2 different Cabals in one turn.
Yeah, I almost missed this line of getting the Thunderfist in position to shoot at both of them until I realized that if he could just melee down the cap, because the Thunderfist has a much better melee profile than a Leadbelcher does. Like, is a genuinely good melee fighter. So just intentionally got into melee combat so I could trigger Might Makes Right in a better position to shoot the second Cabalist.
Yeah, so part of it is kind of just, if you have two different plays, you may think, okay, well, what's the more mathematically likely play? If you really need to kill something, okay, do I do a move and attack? Do I do maybe a double range attack or something like that? I'd start there, and then so the Shadow Piercer. So my notes are a little weird. My notes say you used a triple, but I think you used Death from Above. I'm not sure which you used.
Pretty sure it was the quad. Pretty sure it was Death.
Yeah, it had to be that's what I was going to say. I think it had to be the quad there because only the Shrike Talon gets access to the triple.
Yeah. Right. It was the quad, and like the quad does, it did a lot of damage.
Yes.
It's a really good quad.
Yep, this was my shining moment.
Yep. So with the strength boost, he jumps down, gets the Maneater for 21 points. 21 points of damage. So how many hit points does the Maneater have? How many is remaining?
Oh man, I don't have that book in front of me. I just grabbed TOC. A lot.
I want to say it was like 28. Maybe he had like 7 left. It was fairly close to.
I thought it was more than that. I thought all the ogres had like 40.
Yeah, I think it was more than that. I'd pull it up here, but I'm afraid of dropping the call. But it took a big chunk out of him, but it didn't kill him.
It's that will be kind of the theme of the evening.
Yeah, ogres are tough, man. They
no, Maneater's got 30. Okay.
30.
Yeah. So he's grievously he's hurting, but he's still pretty good. So unfortunately, what happens in this game when you make an attack like that is you open yourself up for a counter attack using both attacks.
Yeah, that happened.
And so you also pop Onslaught as well. So double attack cracks back for a total of 21.
And turns out the Shadow Piercer is not an ogre, and 21's enough to kill him.
Yeah, I believe he has 20.
Yep. So he got splatted. And this kind of brings up, I've noticed this before, like some of the unique warbands, they have some limitations to them. Without getting into the whole debate about the AOS, imported warbands all being superior to the bespoke ones. I'll say this: like most of the cultist warbands, the pre-box cultist warbands, almost all their hit points top out at 20. Like maybe there's the ogre and iron golems, which has more than that. But there's a lot of things that those warbands don't have. They don't have flyers. They don't have insane chaff unless you're talking about spiders. They don't have big guys that can tangle head to head with other big guys, unfortunately.
Yes, and what they have to do to combat that is try to win on activation economy, like just out activating. But the thing is, ogres in particular, and some other warbands too, but one thing ogres is really good at is getting efficient removal of opposing chaff with that Might Makes Right ability. So they're really good at evening up that activation count really quickly.
Yep.
And that's kind of the way it goes.
Plus, you have the access to the Noblars to kind of beef up your numbers too. I mean, you're coming in with, you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You had 8 models. You had 8 models in your warband.
I had 8 models, and I had 3 insane heavy hitters that would be the heaviest hitter in most other warbands. So,
okay. And then also off screen, we had a Cabalist going after Quiv, wounding Quiv for 5.
But again, Quiv lives.
Yep. So we had a little bit of fighting here, and then we got a little bit of repositioning as well. So Quiv runs away like a good Noblar should.
Yes, I wanted to preserve him for the triple.
Yep. So we get the Spire Stalker climbing up here, and I think I'm thinking you're probably trying to set for another quad, another death from above, potentially to finish off the guy. I think that's what you're thinking here.
Also, I believe the treasure's over there now, right? Is that correct?
Yep, the treasure's on the ground. Yep.
So, you know, the option of him controlling both treasures in opposite directions of the board is live at this point, which was on my mind. Like, I needed to make sure I could keep some amount of suppressing fire onto both treasures so that I wouldn't run the risk of overcommitting to one and losing to the last one. So I was worried this guy was going to try to jump down and then run away with the treasure where my man-eater couldn't get him. So that's just something to be aware of.
And then so then you had some so we got all your big guys out of the way here. And then finally, your final moves here, just some Noblar moves. So the Noblar's picking up the middle treasure that's open, getting it consolidated in the center there. So you're kind of like setting yourself up for future turns. You had a Noblar, I think, off screen engage a couple of the Cabalists, to tie them up, and then also you sent a Noblar up to engage the Shrike Talon as well up here.
And for anyone that's not familiar with Corvus Cabal on the way they play, the Shrike Talon is their most, by far their most dangerous offensive unit. Just a really efficient, well pointed, fast, hard hitting model. And so you'll see in both these games, my game plan kind of revolved around knowing where the Shrike Talon was and where it could get to at all times. Because I wasn't super afraid of Cabalists, but I was worried the Shrike Talon could come in from an unexpected angle and take out a key piece. So a lot of it is trying to keep the Shrike Talon busy.
Dave, any thoughts?
No, not really. I think at this point I'm basically just committed to trying to play keep away as much as possible, and I've already lost the treasure I've gained, so it's not really working.
Yep. And so that's the end of round 2. And so then Fred gets to remove a treasure here. So he removes the one down in the corner, and so he's forcing essentially. So he has possession of the one in the middle, and he's forcing a fight over that middle treasure here. And it's not over yet because we do have one Cabalist kind of getting in position here that might make a good play for it. Plus the guy up on the roof here.
But I do have a lot of Hrothgorn is in range of there, and the Thunderfist is standing right there, and the Man-Eater could step around and take pistol shots. So I'm feeling really good about kind of the overlapping fire that I have to bring to bear on the center of the table there.
Yep. Plus also you can see here the tie-ups, right? You have the Shrike Talon tied up here, and you have a single Noblar tying up 2 different Cabalists here. So for them to kind of get involved, they're going to have to. It's going to cost them some movement to do a disengage first before trying to get in somewhere. So again, part of the game is about positioning. It's not just straight up combat superiority, but sometimes it's positioning, like sending a piece to tie up a piece, sacrificing a piece, or something like that. So now we got round 3 going on. So here's your first use of Raven Dart. So you had a double for Raven Dart, which didn't hit.
Raven Dart.
Yeah.
I was committed to darting it up, and it just didn't really work out for me as much as I wanted.
Yep. And
so
then,
here we see Hrothgorn decide that he's going to get involved.
Yep. And so he takes a shot at the Shrike Talon. And so with his double attack, deals 21. Again, the hit when the hit points cap out at 21, and you're able to make, and you're going against someone that has the ability to make double attacks for 21. It's not a great combination. And then you pop a Mike Makes Right again, because it's easy to have doubles available. You got another shot, and you manage to get another Cabalist for 12 with the next shot.
Now these are, to be fair, these are good rolls. So the Cabalist, I get 2 attacks, and that's a hit and a crit on 2 attacks. And the Strike Talon was something like that. Yeah, there's actually, Hrothgorn can't do 21 damage, so that I don't think is correct. But it may have been an even 20. Which would be 2 crits and 2 hits on 4 attacks, on 4 dice. So
Okay.
Either way, that would have killed the Strike Talon. But so Hrothgorn got good rolls here, but still, the more dice you roll, the better you're going to roll, right?
This is a sad moment for me.
Yeah, this is where it really the door started to swing pretty firmly shut. I think just losing this many models.
Yeah, you're right. That is pretty hot rolling, because the Hrothgorn only rolls 2 dice.
Exactly.
So Cabalist for 12 is exactly a hit and a crit on 2 dice, and then hitting for 20, that's 2 hits or 2. No, it's out of 4 dice. That's crit hit. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that is pretty hot.
He's rolling well here, but not, to be fair, he has 6 strength, so he hits pretty consistently on 3s. So hits are really easy for him to come by, but the crits are obviously lucky rolls.
So moving forward here, so we get the Spire Stalker, jumping down, trying to take out the Noblark here in the treasure. So gets him for 1. Quiv, so you had a triple here to test out Quiv. So Quiv uses his ability. Here you go, boss. I love the flavor of that, by the way.
Yeah, really good, because Quiv is just holding a giant arrow for Hrothgorn that he uses like a spear. So he just hands it up to Hrothgorn to reload, and he gets a shot. He does, in fact, only roll 2 dice, though, so here he whiffed. So that's the downside. The upside is that really bursty damage. The downside is on 2 dice, you can whiff.
Yep. And then so then off screen we had the Cabalists. So the 2 Cabalists that were tied up by the Noblar. So the Noblar gets taken out for his efforts. And I think this was a 3-turn scenario.
Yeah, it's a base game scenario. It was 3 turns.
Yep. So it was a 3-turn scenario. So Noblar still holding it. So the Ogres win. So we'll do lessons learned all together at the tail end of it. But any final thoughts on this game?
I was happy with Hrothgorn. Need to test that a little more. Obviously, the potential for really high damage was there. Also, just the standard tried and true ogre strategy of using Might Makes Right with your real heavy hitters at range to generate kind of a lot of cheap bonus activations is what we did here, and it was really, really good every time it happened. That strategy is really strong.
It was mercifully quick.
That's true. Yep.
Yes.
3 rounds, mercifully quick. So for the next game, it was
an interesting victory condition. I liked it. That's my final takeaway thought.
Yeah, I did think the disappearing treasure was an interesting hook.
Speaking of that, this next game, it ended up being really interesting.
Yeah, this was much more interactive. So this is Fred's Daughters of Khaine.
Man, I know I'm the one that based them and painted them, but I love those bases so much. They're my favorite bases I've ever done. They just all are standing on a big mound of skulls. It's just, it's.
I didn't realize that you had gotten like resin printed skull bases. I thought that you're breaking into your stash of GW skulls.
Nope, still got however many hundreds of skulls come in that box too. So
tell me about this.
Daughters of Khaine. Here's the thing about Daughters of Khaine. They are fast. The slowest unit moves 5. The snakes move 7. And their flying units are absurd. I think they move 12. Don't have any of the flying units here. I only have 1 snake. But the Sisters of Slaughter with Whips and Shield also have a 2-inch range and move 5. And they also, the other thing about Daughters of Khaine is they get, like Slaanesh demons, all of their units, including their chaff models, have a ton of attacks. I believe Sisters of Slaughter have 4 attacks as chaff units at range 2. So you generate a lot of your damage. Some warbands are like this. Like I said, Tzeentch is like this. Lumineth Realmlords is like this. Iodoneth Deepkin is like this. Your chaff models actually aren't just sponges or tie-up pieces or objective holders. They actually are where you generate a lot of your damage. Because they have such a high number of attacks, you just go crit fishing with them. The other centerpiece of this army, of course, is the Bloodrack Medusa, who hits absurdly hard, moves 7, has a range 2, or I'm sorry, range, I believe it might be a range 3 spear, and has a really good ability to immobilize enemies. So just a total package of a unit for 240 points. So the goal with this list was to be fast, hit hard, and then bring in the Bloodrack Medusa where the fighting is the heaviest to kind of really clean that area up.
Yeah, so I finally got the destruction in the order rule book, so I got it open right now. So yeah, Bloodrack Medusa, I'm seeing that now. Yeah, she's pretty sweet. 4 attacks, 4 strength, 3/5 damage profile. That 7-inch move you talked about, a spear, 35 hit points. Yeah, she's a pretty good monster.
Yeah, really good model. I think really if you're playing competitive Daughters of Khaine, I think Bloodrack Medusa is your build around model in any list that you put together. It's Sisters of Slaughter, which are very good, and Bloodrack Medusa, which is really, really good as far as just your centerpiece heavy duty model. The Slaughter Queen's in here. She actually has a pretty decent ability to add attacks to people. Is an okay fighter, but is in there because the points work.
Yeah, she's kind of like she's like at 165. She's kind of a little more of a mid range unit.
Yeah, you bring her mostly for the Sacrifice to Khaine, I think is the name of the ability. But she's fine. Some of my more recent lists cut her for more snakes, for more snake ladies, but I hadn't kind of worked on that yet. So this is kind of an older list. But I was very happy with the way it played. I like the way that it's just so over the top. As far as like Khaine is, they're an order faction, but they're like super blood and skull kind of faction, and they're fun to paint and they're fun to play.
Yeah, and you're also right about the number of attacks. Yeah, almost everything has 4 attacks. The knives and buckler don't. They have 3. So I think so all your models actually have the knives and bucklers, but we actually did play 2 of them with the whips and shields, correct?
No, they all are whips and knives.
Okay, so yeah, correction to the slide there. Everything was whip and knife.
Those are everything's whip and knife. Everything's whip and knife.
Yeah, because I mean the extra attack, the range and stuff like that. All right.
And then witch elves are just worse. They're cheaper, worse Sisters of Slaughter without whips.
Yep.
And so you just take them to fill out the points. Sisters of Slaughter are your hard workers.
Yeah, but at 65 points for that cheapest chaff model, that's not bad because you get the extra tax in the profile and the extra move.
Yeah. Daughters of Khaine is a good faction. They have a lot of good models. They're somewhat deep. You can go kind of mid-rangey with the snakes. You can go really fast. You can go really chaff spammy. Just a good faction to tinker around with. I like building lists for them.
Obligatory Salty Sea plug. Yeah, I think he had them in his A tier. So yeah, they're I didn't realize they were that high, but I think it was on the strength of Bloodrack Medusa and stuff.
Yeah. Bloodrack Medusa plus how good Sisters of Slaughter are is a powerful combination. And David was playing running back his same Corvus Cabal. Here I was gonna play Slaves of Darkness, and I audibled at the last second to bring out the Daughters of Khaine, and I enjoyed playing them, so I'm glad I got to get them out of the box.
Yeah. So this one here now we played the Messenger. And so the goal of this one is you got to roll off, get attacker, defender. Attacker secretly nominates the messenger. Messenger needs to escape off of one of the board edges. And so we set up like this. So the red edges here are the edges you have to escape through. I think we actually set it up so that it had to be here.
Yes,
so
I
this,
believe
we did
went
not
back and
play
forth
this as a
on-
table edge.
Yeah, that's correct.
And so, yeah, because there's the definition of an edge wasn't necessarily 100% clear to us. And it also
played
would have
well
been,
this way. It worked okay.
yeah, it played way better this way. It would have been a non-game, I think, otherwise. You just would have scooted out and it would have been like game over on turn 1 or something like that, probably. So, but we're not going to spoil the surprise of who the messenger is yet. We had a little bit of a weird deployment here too. So this is not a symmetrical deployment. All three of Fred's deployment groups started on the table here, with Dave's coming on later. So, and that was a little. I mean, it still wound up playing out interestingly, but big advantage right now to just on the start of the game to Fred, because he's able to kind of get everyone on the board and get them all collected there.
Yes, but one of the things that did make this version of deployment plus victory condition interesting is that you'll notice that David has control of that table edge from turn 1, and it ended up being a really interesting game. I really enjoyed this combination of deployment plus victory condition. And it was kind of interesting, like, because you'll see how tight that area is, just trying to get models through there.
Right. You have
kind of what the game ended up being about.
Right. You have a gap here. You have a gap here, and then you also have some arches here you can kind of get through. But it's not like you can really get through, and with a ton of people at once.
Yes.
And then the way this played out, really, you kind of built a cage. You just kind of ram the cage down his throat to kind of get it out. That's sort of how it played out. And we had a twist. I think this twist was pretty close to a blink here with not a lot of range warbands here in this one.
Yeah, dusk is over each turn of the game. As it gets darker and darker out, your shooting range gets less and less.
Yeah. So this one, yeah. So I mean, between the deployment group and the twist, yeah. Again, we started doing some of the match play scenarios, and I think they're a little more interesting with the built-in twist deployment groups. We'll be doing more of those battle reports in the future, just to kind of avoid some of these, just forgetting about the twists and stuff like that. But so here's what we've got on the board. Another couple pictures of deployment. So round 1, don't have a lot going on here. More or less Daughters of Khaine just advancing. Get a little bit of chip damage here. Cabal is making some able to get in and make a couple attacks on a couple sisters, but no one dying yet. And here you can see go ahead.
Cabalists with the spears do put some work in. They can really poke. That extra bit of range really does help. Really puts them a cut above the rest of the chaff.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good model, the Cabalist with spear. Whatever the name of that faction is that you played, David.
Corvus.
Corvus Cabal is not a bad faction. They Strike Talons are really, really good. Cabalists with spears are good, and you can kind of mash those together into a pretty good. The problem is you need more than one box to do it because you need more than one Strike Talon. You'll see again in this game, spoiler alert, that like my main focus was making sure I controlled what the Strike Talon did. And it's a lot easier when there's only one Strike Talon on the board. It's harder to lock down 2 pieces.
Here's what we got.
Yep.
So here's what we got at the end of round 1, and the models coming on the board for round 2. Here you can see his his group all kind of together here, advancing in the middle. And yeah, sure enough, you have Cabalus with a spear that was able to get some damage on the sister there.
And you can see my strategy already, which is just really try to gain control of one of those choke points so I could ram units through it. And I managed, the Daughters of Khaine are fast. I got up there at round 1 to just sort of start contesting it immediately. I wasn't worried about killing models at this point yet, more about just making sure my models were in position to really try to keep that from becoming too much of a choke point.
Now we start getting some fights in here. So where the wounded sister gets finished off by the Cabalist. Blood
fatality of the night.
Yep.
No, you killed the Noblar around.
You did.
Did I kill a Noblar? Okay, I did not think I killed any of the Ogors, but okay.
You did have that moral victory.
That slight victory.
And then Bloodrack Medusa showing her power here by just standing still, just doing a double attack for 13, taking out a Cabalist, and then also turning up, giving some more effectiveness to the rest of the warband there. So I think you managed to get off Sacrifice to Khaine.
Mm-hmm. It was honestly, I had the triple. Not a lot of the other units are in range of combat, but I had the triple. So I decided that I will go ahead and use it. And, it wasn't like a tactical decision, like to overwhelm a position. It was, I have the triple. I might as well burn it rather than just lose it. And it does give you 5 attacks on all your chaff models that are within 6 inches. So it is a powerful ability.
Yeah. And we see... Yeah, actually, it might have. Yeah, we had some more fighting here, so actually might have actually affected some of the fights here.
Yeah, a little bit for sure.
And so we also got, we got some Raven Dart action going on here. So I don't know how many doubles you spent. At least one, or maybe more, maybe 2 or 3 sets of doubles here.
Probably 2.
So the Shadow Piercer gets up, throws a dart, and then falls back a little bit. So he's up there on the roof. And then you got some more fighting just in the middle here, just the big schmaz starting to happen here. So you got a sister making a double attack, taking out a Cabalist. A little bit of more trading back and forth here, and then one of your Spire Stalkers takes out one of the sisters as well.
Yeah. I don't know if we really went over the makeup. So the Spire Stalkers are just sort of a mid-range unit. They don't really have a lot special going on with them. They're just a little beefier. And then the Shadow Piercer is my leader. So she is a little higher points. She has some unique abilities that I don't really think I even ended up using.
It was one of the abilities that has to do with the Raven. The Raven can affect guys.
Yeah, it can. You can basically send the Raven to tie a figure up. Basically, it would have to disengage like it was in melee range.
So when the dust settles here, this is what we got at the end of round 2. Just a couple models getting thinned out here. You can see Fred's pushing through a little bit now. He has gotten a couple guys into this quadrant area, and we've got about 3 models left on the ground here to stop them, plus 1 up on the roof. We also have some reinforcements that are going to be coming in to flank them on this next turn here. And you got another nice picture of the action here on the right.
Yep, just trying to control that choke point. I got some units ahead of it. I'm just trying to block open a corridor to move through there.
And at this point, I'm starting, to make my guesses who the messenger is. I don't know if we really went over this. Fred picked a figure that I'm not aware of.
Yeah.
And so it's my job to guess which figure this is and bring it down before it can reach the board. Which was interesting because, obviously I don't think he's going to do chaff, something that's going to get brought down in a turn or so. It's going to be one of the bigger models. But he has a few. So I sort of figured like the Medusa is the hardest one to bring down. That's probably it. And so that's where I'm starting to focus my energies.
Yeah, some of these missions are kind of interesting. Right? They bring like a mind game sort of aspect to it, right? Or there's like, multiple objectives and one person needs to pick one secretly. And I mean, they're interesting. They're not my favorite, but there's definitely like a level of play there to it. And we got the reinforcements coming in from the back.
I believe that's a Shrike Talon, right?
Yep,
that is
the Shrike
Talon, yes.
Yeah, so Shrike Talon's coming in round 3.
That's got all my attention at this point. And you can see where there's like a screen of Sisters of Slaughter in the back, protecting my Slaughter Queen and Bloodrack Medusa from trying to buy some time to keep them from being surprise flanked, while still trying to push some damage forward. So it's kind of a balancing act, knowing that there was going to be some heavy hitters coming in the round 3 here.
And so now Shrike Talon makes a my notes might be incorrect here. I think so. With the help of swooping attack, is able to make a double move and still have an attack left for the witch. So it's probably move, swooping attack.
No, I think it is actually move, and then activate swooping attack for the additional attack.
I forgot to put the text here. So it's a bonus move action, and then if you finish that move action 3 inches or more vertically lower than your starting position, you can make a bonus attack action.
So basically what happened is the Shrike Talon double moved up over the wall and then used the bonus move to get up over the wall.
Oh, that's what it was. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, that's right.
So use the bonus move to swoop up there and then down there so it could get the bonus attack.
Yep, and that would work because you at the end of your double move, and then you at the end of the activation there. Yeah, at the end of the activation, you at the end of the move, you've made the move, you've gone down, you get the E attack, and so that is as long as you have the train nearby to enable it, like essentially like wall running or whatever. So that's that's essentially Rampage for a triple, just instead of a quad.
Right.
And Corvus Cabal play, obviously, that's their thing, is they play really well with vertical terrain. They can climb it for free. They can jump off of it for bonus damage. They can get bonus actions by jumping off of it. And so this fight was happening with terrain on all sides of it, so I knew there was a pretty good chance I was going to get jumped on.
Shrike Talon 8-inch move, by the way. So yeah, plenty of movement, to climb up, to get to something and climb up as well. So huge threat radius on there.
Model. Yeah, just a really good model. Speaking of really good models, this is where we've cleared enough space near out of that choke point for the Medusa to get up in the middle of things.
Yep. So the Medusa comes, rolls in, takes the center there, and then she's going to start fighting again. So she wounds the Cabalist. Cabalist hits back, double attack for 6. The Queen moves in behind the Medusa, wounds a Spire Stalker for 6. So no one going down yet. We've got a lot of we got big shemaz going on here. Then the Spire Stalkers, they start ganging up on the Medusa. So here's where Dave is thinking, okay, Medusa's got to be the messenger, going in on it. Double attacking with a Spire Stalker, Witch jumping in, hitting back, Shadow Piercer, getting some chip damage on the Medusa.
Just a big team fight going on right here by the
Yep.
by the board edge.
And there's more fighting going on. A lot of notes here for this. Spirestalker hitting the Medusa for 6. Usually this is about the point. I didn't put it on the notes here. This is where we start keeping track of, okay, so how many hit points, how many hit points does the Medusa have left? Because that becomes more important than how many wounds are on it.
Yes.
And then you had so we had a sister. Well, go ahead. You had something, Dave?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Then you had the sister. So the sister using an onslaught versus the Spirestalker getting a double attack for 12. So we had all this fighting here, and you still had double left for onslaught. Do you remember what you're thinking here?
Onslaught on a Sister of Slaughter, if you get double attack, is rolling 10 dice on a chaff model, which is really cool. They are just really good when they get kind of the opportunity to double attack. All I'm trying to do here is make sure that I have any kind of control over this, because I know I need to move through it to get to that table edge if I want to win the game. So I'm just trying to thin out the models here and make sure I have open lanes to move through. What I don't want to have happen is the Strike Talent or the Cabalist and everything to spread out and just block all of my potential movement through here. So that's what we're trying to keep from happening here. Just lock as many of them in combat as possible, kill them, and open up some of these movement lanes.
So it kind of brings up a really good point there about like judicious use of doubles for onslaught. Like you could have used it on the Queen or the Medusa, but instead it's kind of surprising, right? You wouldn't think, okay, I'm going to use this onslaught on a sister on one of my 75 point chaff models. But if you keep that double in your back pocket for when you need it, in this case, it gave you enough of an edge there where the sister going up against a little bit larger fighter, that Spirestalker, gave you enough dice to get a double attack and actually take out, and win a mismatch.
Yeah, it lets them punch above their weight class. I wasn't so much worried about the Medusa. I wanted to save it for later in the battle round where I knew, like, if you moved in and tried to cut off one of my units from moving, I wanted to have that double left over to try to punch through it. It was all about not just trying to kill every unit, but just trying to kill the units that mattered, I guess is the way to put it. Well, keeping the Strike Talon locked up. You'll notice there is a unit in base contact with the Strike Talon. Just doing my best to feed him a steady diet of elves to keep him from getting into the big scrum.
And then finally, we got a Cabalist killing a sister there, and so I believe it's the one on the right. It looks like one to dying.
Sisters of Slaughter are not ogres, so they go down when they fight. So this is a 4-round victory condition or deployment. So this will be coming up on the final round here.
Yep. Was it? Let me double check here. I believe it's 3 rounds, or it could go to 4. Didn't specify on the card. But yeah, this is the last round here. So here we have going into the last round. You can sort of see what's developing here. You got a handful of models still working on the Bloodrack Medusa up in the upper left corner, the Queen behind, and you got some skirmishes kind of trailing behind here as well. Strike Talon is kind of out of the fight here. So again, just fighting back and forth here. So Shadow, now we're keeping track of hit points. So Shadow Piercer gets Medusa for 7. You got 12 hit points left on her. Here you're popping Onslaught on the Medusa, and because you got a big target here. And so she cracks back, gets 30 points on the Shadow Piercer. So he's knocked out. And now you got the Cabalists, and they're kind of like making a last ditch effort here. You get a hit for 10. Now she's got 2 hit points left. Throw Raven Dart. And
Raven Dart.
Get 1 hit point. 1 damage there. 1 hit point left.
At this point, I'm not worried about the Medusa because
she's done her job, right?
She's done her job. She's already activated this turn.
And at this point, I've noticed that Ryan's not worried about the Medusa. So I'm thinking like, okay, well, it's probably the Queen, but I'm already committed to killing the Medusa at this point. So.
Mm-hmm. We got the Spire Stalker. Finally Raven Darts again to finish the Medusa. Okay, so they wasn't completely easy. I mean, you did spend doubles for that. You managed to get a move in. This is the Spire Stalker. I was also able to get the Queen for 10. Make sure I got I'm getting my guys mixed up. So we got some damage on the Queen here. We got the Cabalist. Got a Cabalist in the back dying. Shrike Talent eats another witch off screen. And that so we get the Queen position and we figure out, okay, who was the messenger? It was
the Queen.
It was the Queen.
Yes.
The whole time.
So the Medusa was like the distraction Carnifex, so to speak.
Yes. Did a really good job of that. And it's not like you play wrong by having to kill it, right? Like when it's in the middle, like if you can ignore it, ignore it. But it's like in the middle of where the action is, and it will just, if you don't kill it, it will just kill models every single turn, like from here on out. So like you have to interact with it.
Right.
Was my thought. I mean, look, the thing is sitting there with a 3-inch attack. A range, and it's sitting like right in the middle of this tile. Like it can put pressure anywhere that matters, like once it got there for the rest of the game. So I'm not saying you played incorrectly by killing it. It just the Queen was the messenger and she managed to slip through that lane there.
Without turning this into a deep dive episode, with the Daughters of Khaine and how good the Blood Rack Medusa is that is like a double Blood Rack Medusa potentially a list, or
it's possible. I think the reason you don't see people trying it is that Blood Rack Medusas are hard to get as models.
That's right, because she came on that big model, right?
I believe that's the only place to get one. I could be wrong about that, but I looked pretty high and low, and I think the only way to get one is as the rider of the Cauldron of Blood. Then you can get like the Melusi, who is like the snake leader, who also has a ton of attacks and is okay. And you can get the Iron Scale Medusa, which is like a step below the Blood Rack, and it's fine. But yeah, my current lists are Blood Rack Medusa Harridan, which is the flying, the Canary leader. They have that super fast flyer in there. She has 5 attacks, and a super fast range and a flyer, just to get a flyer in the list. But I think you could do a lot worse than running 2 Blood Racks. They're very, very good. It's a matter of, can you put 480 points in there and then fit the chaff in there in a way that makes sense? I haven't looked.
Yeah, that's true.
As far as like making the points kind of not together there, but it's a great model. I certainly wouldn't mind having 2 of them. It's fast, it's relatively tanky, it's super killy, and it's got a great ability. And all for under 250 points.
Yeah, I guess there's a few other things to kind of think about there too. So I mean, something to keep in mind for the next time we do a list deep dive episode. That might be one we go into.
Final thoughts on that, and again, not to go into too much detail, but Sisters of Slaughter are so good that cutting a bunch of them is a pretty real cost.
Oh yeah.
So it's like Iodine at Deepkin. Like you can build some really cool lists with a bunch of eels in them, but Namarti thralls are so good that like not playing as many of them as you can fit in there is a real cost. So I think that's something to consider as well. I would love to do a deep dive episode on Daughters of Khaine. I also have some Stormcast Vanguard stuff that I've been kicking around. But for now, yeah, that's kind of the parting thoughts on the list. I really like the way it played. The Slaughter Queen is the worst model in the army and has since been replaced, but is defensible. It's not a bad model. It's just not Sisters of Slaughter good or just Blood Rack good.
She's mid.
Yeah, exactly.
So takeaways, lessons learned, just a few things we kind of discussed there at the table and kind of afterwards, or that we might have already touched on here. So like how you do your deployment groups, especially if you're doing the base deployment scenarios where you know the hammer is statistically likely to come on later. And so you had your Shrike Talon in the hammer. It kind of makes sense, right? Because Shrike Talon moves 8. You want to have if they're going to come on late, if you have a mobile unit there in your hammer, he's going to get in the fight later. But you also have to consider that Shrike Talon is the very best thing that your warband does. And you probably want to lean into that as much as possible and start with them on the board if possible. So it's a tough call to make. You may want to look at deployment groups, and maybe taking a look at your deployment groups and move some guys around. Thoughts on that, Dave?
No, you basically pretty much summed it up there. Yeah, that was my thinking, was that with the speed of the Shrike, that it would be able to just kind of come in and pick off wounded fighters and move but that also means you get maybe 1-2 rounds to actually use it. So I do think it's probably better just to get it out there as fast as you can.
Yeah, and maybe it's not an issue if you're looking at the TOC missions, because there's a little bit more of a mix in terms of like what comes on when. So maybe having
the other things to take away from that, and again, not to get into list building too much philosophy in this episode, but in the TOC, they're much more thoroughly randomized, and missions are 4 rounds.
So your guy's going to get in regardless, even if he comes in on turn 2.
Everybody is on the board by turn 2. There are no turn 3 deployments. So very, very different. In base game, your hammer very frequently will be on the board on the very last battle round. And so getting use out of that deployment group, while not burning good units on it necessarily, is pretty valuable. But if you're playing TOC missions, that is less of a consideration. Although matched play is something that you can know in advance what your deployment groups are going to look like and build them accordingly. So deployment groups are really important.
I would also say that, optimally you're going to have at least another Shrike Talon.
For sure. Yep.
Yeah. So I definitely think there may be something to having one start the board and then bringing another one in later.
Yeah. I saw that double Corvus Cabal box at the hobby shop today, and thought about you. I was like, oh man, if only you got in the double box.
They did not have it at the store we were at the day I bought them, or I probably would have got the double box.
Oh, at Mavericks?
Yeah, Mavericks.
Yeah, you gotta come up to Hobby Shop, man. It's the best.
Yeah.
Sponsored. This podcast brought to you by the Hobby Shop.
By the Hobby Shop. Hobby Shop.
I gotta tell a story about it. I was gonna mention it today, right? I was there today, and so we have this place in Dayton. It's just called the Hobby Shop, just in plain letters up top, and they have everything there. It's primarily like RC car repair and stuff like that, but they have like model kits, like just like regular model kits, like a boatload of paint, board games, card games. It is a ton of square footage. It's like it's a shock and awe store. They have like one of everything you can imagine.
It's an old school hobby store. For those listeners that are old enough to remember sort of before Magic became popular enough to build dedicated stores around collectible games. You would go to hobby stores that sold like model airplane kits and model train stuff, and the hobby store. Yes, the hobby store retains a lot of that.
Yeah.
Old school hobby shop type stuff, Hobby Lobby kind of store.
Yeah,
Not
unusual to go into an old store like that and be trying to find Games Workshop models while people are like racing slot cars next to you.
Yeah, exactly right. That was where you went because those were the only hobby stores that were not dedicated game stores. So, yeah.
No, we gotta add the disclaimer here: sponsored content.
Yep.
Give me that discount.
Yeah. So we talked about deployment groups. So use the doubles. We kind of talked about this. So I mean, you were using the Raven darts, and we are all kind of laughing about it. It was kind of a meme, right? But there is a big difference between, like, look, you got them here. Like, look at them side by side, like Raven dart versus Onslaught, or Might Makes Right, which is a straight up free action. It's conditional.
Well, Might Makes Right is absurd. Like,
right.
it's what makes ogres good. Like, that ability is insane. But yeah, definitely about situational use of the abilities. Now, when the heavy hitting model has 1 hit point left and you can like pop around a corner and whip a dart at it, is a pretty good time to throw a dart. When you're trying to stack damage, Onslaught is going to be better 99% of the time, I think. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, like Onslaught is like, you know, the metric, the bar by which any other double is measured. Like, okay, you have to look at it like, okay, is this good, or should I just be doing Onslaught instead? And we even saw like how effective Onslaught could be. Like, yep, a chaff model helps make a favorable, Onslaught on a chaff model helps make a favorable trade. So that's something we learned. The rune marks, I think we got that one straightened out. I thought we had some confusion over what happened, and there might have been some confusion over rune marks, but I think we got that figured out. I think the notes were it was more on my notes than a misplay. But the rune marks, kind of knowing, if you're just learning the game, kind of knowing what your rune marks do, especially if you have rune marks that look very similar, like, a bunch of different skulls.
And like 50 of them are a variant of a very similar looking skull.
Yeah. Like sometimes that gets kind of, rough. So that I thought that came into play in the reporting a little bit, but I don't think not so much during the game. Any other lessons learned from you guys?
I think the big takeaway from these two games for anybody watching or those of us that were playing them is just really planning ahead to make favorable positioning moves, knowing where on the battlefield is important, and deploying and moving accordingly, using your chaff models to block for your important models, trying to isolate units into non-important parts of the battlefield while your models get more efficient uses in areas that are more strategically important, is something that's really hard to look at a list on paper and come up with yes, this list will do. It's all about just adapting to the situation on the battlefield. And it's something to keep in mind every time you make a movement. Like, actions are so limited in this game. In a 4-turn game, every model only gets to make so many actions. And trying to use your chaff to make their big units worse, while using your big units to advance your game plan, is a big thing you can do and get a lot of value out
of. I would say, as a relatively new player, you get your army and you learn it, and you're trying to, okay, this ability looks good on paper. How good is it in practice? And so you get real tunnel vision on your own army. But I think if you're really going to play competitively, not like seriously competitively, but even just to put up a fight, you know,
To get better, right?
right. Spend some time learning other armies, because Fred knows what his army does, and he also knows what my army does. Whereas I have no, you know, I'm just winging it. I barely know what I'm doing, let alone what he's doing. So that's definitely a tactical advantage. So learn your army, but don't get, you know, so focused on learning what you're doing that you're not taking in the game as a whole.
Yes, and it's not because I have a problem. It is tactics that I have 40 warbands built. So
Yeah.
There's a overlap
It's
there, I think.
yeah.
I don't know that one is mutually exclusive to the other.
Yeah, I definitely could see that. I could say, you know, me personally, right? I really had no interest in any of the order war bands and didn't have the order book. And then I was doing reporting at Adepticon and was like, what are these guys do? Like, I had no idea what some of the, you know, there's 3 or 4 different Stormcast Eternal factions with different unit lists. And so I realized that was a kind of big gap in my game. And so, you know, just for purposes of reporting and being more knowledgeable of the game, I had to broaden my horizons as well. And it turns out, you know, okay, maybe there's some cool stuff in order there that I might get into eventually. Who knows?
Yeah, Order has some interesting ones. Daughters of Khaine, Idoneth Deepkin. It's not all Stormcast as much as Games Workshop.
I might even come around and actually get into Stormcast. Who the heck knows?
Stormcast is fascinating to work with because they're so expensive. It's a really interesting list building problem that I keep coming back to over and over again. So on a deep dive episode, we'll talk about Stormcast sometime.
Yeah, I mean, it would make perfect sense for me too, right? Because I'm a slow painter. I'm slow at hobbying. Wouldn't it make sense? Like, I should be playing 6 model Stormcast lists instead of like, I'm going to play 13 Skaven. I'm going to paint and play 13 Skaven. Just as soon as I finish them.
I would much rather paint like 3 big intricate models than like 15 little dinky guys.
Yeah, but for whatever reason,
I like Elite Warbands. So
I know, I do too. But for whatever reason, I keep on building swarms.
So right. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Those are our 2 battle reports. I hope everybody enjoyed them. And then we have more down the pike. I wasn't there for this one, but I'm really interested.
Yeah, this was me. Yep, this was me playing, Zach reporting. My Skaven versus Joel playing Seraphon.
He's the Seraphon player. So I'm really interested to see how this one went.
Yeah, Joel's got some beautifully painted Seraphon. And so we started getting into like the match play scenarios well with this one too. So yeah, this was interesting. This had a little bit of interaction to it.
Yeah, so a lot to unpack there. Match scenarios. We haven't done a report with Seraphon in it yet, so some good stuff. I'm looking forward to it.
When giant rats fight dinosaurs, nobody wins.
So before we get to the outro here, just one other thing we got potentially coming up. I mean, we're on the air. I'll put you on the spot now. My brother's in town next week. We're trying to get a game together to show him that. And then also we do have an invite from the Columbus contingent to get together for a narrative event. And so just keep that in mind. Check in your availability for the month of May. Trying to set a date for that.
Yeah,
if we could pull that off.
Yeah, I would
dive some into some narrative and kind of record that and take a look at break that down. Would be a lot of fun.
So I'm gonna start pushing to try to get folks to like, okay, let's pick a date. Pick a date as a group, stick to it, and kind of make this happen here.
Absolutely.
Right. Definitely.
This brings us to a close for this episode of Dayton Warcry Club. If you're watching or listening to us right now, you've already found us. You can also find us at tinyurl.com/Dayton Warcry Club. As of the time of this recording, we are at 94 subscribers on the YouTube channel. If we get to 100, then we get to use a real channel name. That's the first goal we had when we started this, so help us get there. For social contacts, so Zach's our primary social media guy. You can find his Twitter posts from @Dayton Warcry or on Reddit as Yawgmoth4Prez. Or you can find all of us on the official Warcry Discord. I'm active under the name War Machine.
Find me as FredShred. I lurk more than I post, but I post every once in a while as well. But I check it several times a day, and I read everything.
I'm C Forever. If you tag me, I'll probably respond. I check it when I can. Sometimes I forget.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Probably won't even have to do any snip outtakes at the end.
Yeah, that was pretty clean.
Mm-hmm.